Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our panel discussion. I am your moderator, Priya Autar. And with me this afternoon, I have you panelists, Ms. Otina Piquet, Ms. Delilah Williams, Ms. Vanessa Rambarose, Ms. Sasha Richardson, and Ms. Paulette Fernandez. This afternoon, I welcome everyone to our panel discussion, and we will be discussing communicative language teaching. We will also be exploring how CLT emphasizes real interaction and communication in the classroom. We look at its origins, key principles, classroom use, assessment, and feedback. Let us begin by hearing from our panelists. What does CLT mean to you?
Okay, so the communicative language teaching, it really changes how we think about teaching languages. So back in the 1960s, it began when people realized that students could memorize grammar, but they still couldn't use the language in their daily life. So the CLT made the communication the focus instead of memorization, where the students can learn by actually talking and using the English.
It's about creating situations too, where students need to communicate, not just repeat. Whether they're doing a role play or group project, they're using English for a real purpose.
CLT also connects all the skills such as listening, speaking, reading, and writing. We don't use those skills separately in life. So CLT brings them together naturally.
For me, I love that CLT is student-centered. So the teacher becomes more of a guide, giving support while allowing the students to explore and express themselves.
And it also makes learning meaningful. When students talk about real issues or experiences, they're more engaged and confident.
Great points. Now let us dig into the key principles behind CLT.
Okay, now let's dive into the first one, which is the communicative principle, whereas the students learn through genuine communication.
Another principle is the task principle. Students learn by doing things with language, not just talking about it.
And another principle would be the meaningful principle, as Ms. Colette would have mentioned. Now, lessons should relate to the pupil's real life, like writing an invitation or planning a school event.
Additionally, let's not forget about learner autonomy. This gives pupils the chance to assess themselves while they reflect on what they've learned. It also helps them take charge of their own learning.
Finally, interaction ties it all together. Peer work and group discussions give students authentic chances to communicate and learn from each other.
Ms. Priya, your mic is mute.
Okay, thank you, panelists. Now, tell me, how do we actually apply CLT in our classrooms?
Well, for me, I would use things like role play, whereas the students need to act out situations like ordering food or asking for help. And for them, it's fun and it helps them practice real life English.
Also in my class, I like information gap games. Students have different bits of information. They connect to each other.
Another CLT activity would be group discussion, work well also. They give each pupil a voice, even the ones that doesn't really speak in the classroom.
In my grade 4 classroom, I used project-based tasks. For example, the students were doing community and social studies, whereby they were allowed to plan a community day. They wrote, spoke, and collaborated, and all of this brought out their skills together.
Agree with Miss Sasha. Even a simple interview task lets them practice authentic communication, and you can easily adjust it for stronger or weaker students.
Okay, panelists. Now, assessment would often feel tricky with CLT. So tell me, how do you handle that?
For me, I focused on authentic assessment, which relates to real life context. Seeing how the pupils use their language in real situations, for example, their presentation, group task, and portfolios tells me more than what a grammar test could ever do.
So for me, formative feedback also helps them because I walk around during activities, I listen in, I give small prompts or encouragements to the pupils, so it helps them work better.
I like using peer feedback. Pupils learn a lot from listening to each other and giving suggestions.
And feedback should be supportive. Instead of saying that's wrong, I might say, try saying it this way the next time.
I truly agree with what Teacher Collett is saying. It's all about helping them grow. I also use self-assessment checklists. So students reflect on what they can do and what they want to improve in.
Okay, panelists, that's great. Now, before we close, let us explore a few broad questions to deepen our understanding. My first question to you is, how can teachers adapt CLT to large or mixed ability classrooms?
Since it's a large classroom, I believe it's only fair that we minimize this classroom, whereas we can prompt peer interaction and reduce pressure for the teacher as well as the kids, whereas we can encourage negotiation of meaning and collaborative problem solving for them. And since it's the 21st century, we might as well integrate technology. We can use language learning apps, things like online forum and video conferencing, basically the tools to stimulate global communication. Thank you.
Okay, Miss. I have another question. How does CLT differ from traditional grammar translation methods?
In most classrooms, English is taught and also used as a means of instruction. However, when teachers incorporate communicative teacher and students, in the teacher is the sage on stage. The students are more passive recipients, listening and repeating what is being taught. The classroom is more likely to be teacher-centered. While in the CLT classroom, the teacher is seen as the facilitator who guides the communicative activities. Students take ownership of learning at this stage, where they are engaged in paired work, group discussion, and even role play. The class is considered to be student-centered. Secondly, we look at focus and purpose of learning. In the grammar translation method, traditionally students were expected to learn grammar rules and translate standard English to Creole or Creole to English. It focused not on knowledge of the language and not about language in conversation. But in the CLT setting, students learn to use the language in real life situations. Thank you.
Okay, Miss. Good response. So I have another question, and it says, what resources or technologies support communicative teaching today?
Thank you. That's a great question. Now, adding to what Ms. Otina Piquet would have answered, today we have a variety of modern and practical resources as well as technologies which can support communicative language teaching. Some of these would be our very own interactive whiteboards that schools have across the country. Maybe not all, but some classrooms they're present. We also have educational games and gamification tools that can enhance the speaking, reading, and writing of the pupils, where it can be done in a fun but challenging way to bring out their language use. Additionally, we have videos and audio platforms such as YouTube. All of these are useful because they aim at improving communicative language teaching by exposing our pupils to meaningful language context.
Thank you, Ms. Richardson. Now let us dig a little deeper. What challenges do teachers face in implementing CLT? For example, testing system, time, or training?
Now, some challenges that teachers may face in implementing CLT are limited teacher training. Now, many teachers are not trained in many teachers are mostly trained in traditional grammar-based method. They're not exposed to CLT principles, techniques, or classroom management strategies that support communication. Large classes. It's very difficult to manage meaningful conversations with 50 and more students in a class. The lack of resources. Textbooks may not align with CLT goals. There are few or no authentic materials. And time constraint is definitely a big one. CLT activities like we would have discussed, such as role play, discussions, and projects take a lot of time than traditional methods. And most teachers feel pressure to cover the syllabus rather than promote deep conversation. And lastly, assessment issues. Standardized tests often assess grammar and vocabulary, not communication. Teachers are unaware how to assess fluency, interaction, or negotiation of meaning fairly.
Thank you, Ms. Ramrose. Now, our final discussion in the panel discussion, our final question in the panel discussion is, how can CLT help students build confidence in using English outside of the classroom?
Thank you for that question. How can CLT help build students' confidence in using English outside the classroom? CLT helps build students' confidence outside the classroom by immersing them in real-life communication tasks, encouraging interaction, and reducing fear of making mistakes. It shifts the focus from perfect grammar to meaningful expression, helping students feel more capable and prepared to use English in everyday situations. Students can role play arriving in a new country, finding accommodation, asking for directions, or buying groceries. There, learners gain practical experience and confidence in navigating real-life situations. Learners become more willing to speak English in public. They develop resilience and adaptability in unfamiliar contexts. They see English as a tool for connection, not just a school subject. CLT transforms language learning into a confidence-building journey. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Fernandez. And thank you all for your thoughtful contribution. This afternoon discussion showed that CLT encourages creativity, collaboration, and confidence, but also calls for patience, preparation and flexibility from teachers. To our guests and audience, thank you for joining us. Until next time, have a wonderful evening. This has brought us to the end of our
Thank you.
Thank you.